you have trouble saying no? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods, talking about how to improve your life, one small step at a time. Maybe if you think about it over the last few days, was there some moment where you said yes to something and then you suddenly had a sinking feeling? Okay, I said yes, and now I'm wondering, how am I going to fit this in? How am I going to get this done? What am I going to give up in order to get this done? Maybe it was a committee at church or a neighbor needing a favor or a coworker asking if you could just do a few things for them. And maybe it was a weekend commitment that crowded out the rest of the time that you really needed to fulfill some of your other complications. Or maybe it was a weekend commitment that crowded out what you really needed to get done. And you said yes, and you were kind, and you were generous, and you were accommodating, but now you're behind on things that really matter the most. And what I want to think about when I'm doing this particular item is that every time you say yes, it's the exact moment you are saying no to something else. And most of us don't think about it that way. We think that when we're saying yes, it's generous. We can do things. We can get things done. We have a can-do attitude. And when we're saying no, maybe we're being selfish or it's rude or maybe it's lazy. But it's not always the case. And sometimes it might be exactly backwards, where we're trying to change in our lives. We're looking at these sort of steady, intentional decisions we make in our lives, one small step at a time, instead of these dramatic overhauls. And when we have the discipline to say no, and it allows us then to protect what we have to say yes to that may be the most important thing out there. And if we can learn when to say yes and when to say no, it might be the most important skill you develop this year. So let's start with something that sounds very simple and maybe a little bit profound, but your time and energy are finite. You have a set number of hours during the day. You have a set amount of mental bandwidth during the day. You have a set amount of emotional reserves for the day. You have a set amount of physical energy for the day. Our lives are not infinitely available to us to do every commitment, everything that we say yes to. Every time we commit to take something on, it is what is called an opportunity cost. And that's an economic term that applies really nicely to over everyday life. The opportunity cost of a choice is what you give to make that choice happen. So let's think of it this way. An opportunity cost, like if we decide in a company, we're going to create a new widget. We're going to sell some brand new product in there. That means we're going to pull people off of projects they're already on, and now there's a cost to it. If we decide that we want to go on a vacation to Mexico, that means that the opportunity cost is we can't go on vacation to Europe because we've already invested in this vacation, our money, our time. So we have a cost, right? Every time we make a decision, we have a cost involved in it. So when you say yes to something, you're not just adding one more thing to your list. You have to subtract something else from your list. And so that extra project at work means maybe you're not going to leave on time. Saying yes to a school for your kid, it means that you're going to lose time with your husband or time that you were going to get something done that needed to get done. And if you're deciding to say yes to scrolling on your phone, you are saying no to getting the sleep your body is asking for. Everything has an opportunity cost with that. And we don't usually frame it that way. We sort of think of it as addition. I'm just adding one more good thing onto my life. And calendars don't work like that. Your energy doesn't work like that. So every yes is an implicit no somewhere else in your life. And the question is, are you being intentional about what you're saying yes to and what you're implicitly saying no to? Greg McKeon wrote a book called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And he puts it this way, that if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. The line is struck with me for years. I think about that all the time. I have problems saying no. And it's true, because if you don't decide what you're going to, what deserves your time, what deserves your attention, what your calendar is filled with, then someone else will decide your priorities for you instead. And non-essentialists, the people who haven't learned that particular discipline yet, tend to think that they can do everything. They can do it all, that they can say yes to everything. And they tell themselves they can. I have. I have done it for myself too. And then you end up feeling scattered, overwhelmed, maybe a little bit resentful, burned out, and you're no longer doing the thing that really needed to get done. Essentialists recognize that the trade-offs are real. They ask themselves a different kind of question before they commit to anything. Not just, is this a good thing, but what am I actually saying no to if I say yes to this? I think that the important thing is that we have to, be there to help people in our lives, our family, our friends, maybe a stranger who desperately needs help in some way, or volunteer work that we have to do. I'm not saying to be selfish about it, but I'm saying to be intentional about it, that you have to understand what it is you're saying yes and no to. Maybe at some point, if a local community thing needs you to volunteer, to do something that you're good at, that you can volunteer, you say yes to it because you say, well, I was going to stay home and read a book. That's not very important to me. But maybe, like I said, that time might be time with your child, time with your elderly parent, or doing something that you just are really burned out and you just need a little downtime. So it's not about not being charitable. It is about being focused on what it is that you're supposed to do and intentional with your yeses and your nos. So if we look at it this way, there was an interesting story, and it gets attributed to Warren Buffett, who I don't believe it is true that he actually said this, because he has since declined the fact that he has said this. But essentially, the story is good either way, even though it's maybe not something he said. The popular story of this version of it is that he has basically this exercise he did with this pilot. But essentially, Buffett talked about, career through success that he's had throughout his life, and that he gives himself this exercise, and he writes down the top 25 things, goals, projects, things that he wants to accomplish, big things, right? Career, health, relationships, creative work, whatever is on that list. And then the idea is that you circle the 5 most important things. And this is the important part. We all get that. We're going to circle the 5 most important things in our list. But the 20 items that didn't get circled now become your avoid at all cost list. And not a someday list, not when I have more time. Avoid it. It is no longer on the list until the top 5 are done and completed. And that's what surprises people, is that the most dangerous things on your list are not other things that are floating out there. The items that are on your list that you obviously wanted to do, good things, goals you had, interests you have, the ones that you didn't pick as the top 5 most important things, those are the most dangerous things to you getting the 5 done. They are the ones that are going to tempt you away. They are going to be, in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday. Oh, I should really work on that. That's what's going to drag you away from the 5 most important things in your life. So it's do not do, at least right now. They will derail you. They will feel productive and they will feel like you're moving your life forward, but instead they're pulling your attention and your energy away from one of the things that you've identified as the most important thing. Buffett often said something like this explicitly, that the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to most everything. And you think about that, not just the bad things, they also say no to the good things, the best things that, have their attention are the most important things. The good things, they can drag you away. So I think about that. There's a lot of things that I need to do in my particular life. Like right now, I'm trying to get this house in shape. I'm sort of on the verge of getting new floors worked on. And I have a friend who's going to help me work on that. We need to get that done. That's an important thing. And neither of us are getting younger. And it's a really good opportunity for me to finally get the floors in this house done. And wouldn't that be amazing? And I have 1,000,001 projects. I work on 1,000,001 projects, including podcasting and including other things that I'm trying to do, exercise and those things. And they lead me astray very often. So instead of focusing on all the millions of things I could do around this house, I should be focusing on these top 5 things, get them done and get them over with, and then I can move on to it. That's what's the important part. Like I said, these other things, these things that you want to do, that you enjoy to do, all they can do is just drag you away. So if you get more personal about it, and I think that this is really a way a lot of us feel, is if you're a chronic yes person, like I have been a chronic yes person, I say that with no judgment because I've been there. I know what's driving you. I know that you're doing that because you're charitable and you care about people and you care about things. And when you stop back and look at it, usually it's one of a few things. You might have fear of disappointing someone, the fear of being seen as unhelpful or selfish or not a team player, the fear of missing out on an opportunity, or maybe just general discomfort, which is my part of it, of saying no to someone's face. And when you say yes in that moment, it feels good. It really does. And the awkward moment was avoided. Now I don't have to say no to you. I just said yes. And the person is happy and you feel like you did the right thing. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. You are handing over the steering wheels of your life to other people. Other people's priorities have now become your priorities. Their deadlines crowd out your goals. Their requests fill your time that you maybe needed for your own relationships, your own family, your own children, your own spouse, or the important work that you are doing too. And so over time, you get burned out and resentful about it, not at the people, but at the situation you created. There are times where I have volunteered for something, and then I'm just like, why'd I do this? Now, now this thing I hope to do, the floors I hope to get done aren't going to be done for another year. I don't know if my friend's going to move out of town. I don't know if I'm going to be physically capable of refinishing my own floors. And I put my own priorities on the back burner because of someone else's priorities. And I feel that because I feel like then at that point I'm not being charitable. Maybe I'm not caring. Maybe I'm not being a good friend. But instead of that low-grade feeling that I'm, getting through my life, the things I need to get through on my life, I'm never fully present. I'm always burned out. I'm always just mentally managing everything I've committed to, including the things that I never planned on doing. And that's what McKeon really means when he says that a non-essentialist feels out of control. Because they are. They have outsourced the control of their lives. But an essentialist, by contrast, says 2 words. I choose. Not I have to or I'm supposed to. I choose. If they can't say I choose with any sort of real conviction, then don't say yes. You choose maybe to help your friend with a project they're working on. You choose to stay late at work because it's really important this particular time, but you don't outsource your will, your time, your energy without it being your choice. So the question I want to leave with you on this particular piece is it's worth writing down too, again, that if you say yes to something, what am I saying no to? Every time you say yes to something, figure it out. What am I saying no to? And this is actually what got me away from saying yes to everything, because I would immediately, and it's okay for you to say, let me think about it. Jill, will you help me come over here? I'm working on digging up my backyard and I could really use some help. And before you go, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. Just say, can I get back to you tomorrow on that? I have to sort of look at how my planner looks like. I have to see what my schedule looks like. Then think about it. If I say yes to helping in your backyard, what am I saying no to? And it might be exercise that I need to do on a daily basis. It might be right now I'm studying for certification at work. I might lose the deadline on my certification from work because I said yes to a very large project that wasn't my own. And you might even think about it like this, that if you're saying no, it might also be no to your family dinner, which is important to you keeping up with your family. It might be no to getting the amount of sleep you really need to function as a good human being. It might be some kind of a project that you keep pushing out there that never gets done in your own life. And it might be that you're giving up on the version of yourself you're trying to become. It's not a small thing, and it really deserves every time that someone asks you to do something, it deserves a real answer before you commit. And so it's important for you to think about that. What am I saying no to? And like I said, you do not have to give an immediate yes to everybody. So that was also the second point that really helped me get away from being a yes person all the time. Can I go home and think about it a little bit? We're on the hook when someone asks us to help do something to say yes or no to it right at that instant. And for the most part, you don't have to do that. And it's easier to say no after you've given it some time. Hey, I went home and I looked at my schedule, and after some reflection, I just can't really afford that amount of time right now. I'm sorry I can't help you, but this is really not the greatest time for me to do this kind of project. It's easier to say no after that initial pressure point to say yes or no, but you don't have to. Give it some reflection. Give it some time. In the end, I want to offer, I guess, this framing for you to think about it and see how it feels with you. That most of us carry this idea, and I do too, that saying no is unkind. It's a rejection of the person who is asking us for something. It's letting maybe someone down. And good people, good people say yes. Helpful people say yes. Capable people say yes. And so instead, I want you to look at no as being sort of an act of protection. You're protecting your time for what truly matters that you are working on. You're protecting your energy for the people and the work that deserve it the most in your life. You're protecting your integrity because if you can't honor your own integrity, you're just going to say yes to everything, and instead of giving a graceful no to something. It's not about selfishness. It's about understanding where it is that your time and your energy and your attention are going, and understanding, like I said, what you're going to say no to if you say yes to this new project. Out here in the North Woods, I think about, we talked about seasons, right? That nature doesn't try to do everything at once, right? A tree doesn't bloom in January because the conditions don't allow for it. There's a right time. There's an appropriate time for everything. We talked about that in the seasons episode. And the question is this project you're being asked to do the right time? Not just even the right project, but the right time. You're not obligated to be available for everyone else's projects all the time, especially when you have a sense, and maybe even a quiet sense, of what you're here to do on this earth, the work that matters the most, the people who are the most core to your life, that need the best parts of you, the goals that are actually key to your list, those 5 things. That's what deserves a lot of attention, and it deserves some consideration before you say yes to someone else or something else. Again, I'm not telling you not to be charitable. That's the hard part about all of this. I like to be charitable. I like to help people out, but you also have to think about that at some point, you're not failing to be generous to other people with your time. You are having clarity. You understand exactly what you're saying yes to and exactly what you're saying no to. And in my experience, The people that understand you and love you and know you the best will respect your decisions. So I hope that goes with you a little bit further. And if we get practical with it, because all of this is really just about one thing. It's about using that moment when someone's looking at you and waiting for an answer that we either say, essentially in our minds, yes or no. There's this concept that's flowing around in essentialism and productivity circles, and it goes something like this. If it's not a clear, enthusiastic yes, then it's a no. That's the idea. If you have sort of like a, well, yes, I guess I can help, not a lukewarm response, not a, well, I guess I could, or, instead, if it is not this gut response, yes, I would love to help you with this, the answer is no. The answer has to be no. And that's because it cuts through a lot of the noise, because most of our commitments that drain us weren't the ones that we were excited about doing in the first place. The ones that we agreed to out of obligation or guilt, or maybe, I don't know, some vague just agreeableness. That's my problem. Is the energy is maybe not out there, that the commitments tend to cost more than we're willing to give at that point. And so 3 questions to ask yourself before giving a yes to anything is, 1, does this align with the highest priorities right now? The ones that you've identified, maybe those top 5, as the most important. 2, what will I have to give up? What am I saying no to? And am I genuinely okay with that trade? 3, am I excited by this opportunity or drained by this opportunity? A lot of times I do things at work, and it always has been that I'm the person who got asked to do things. Jill, I know you're already on a customer trip. Would you turn around and fly to the second location and have another customer trip next week? I know we promised that you would only travel 1 week a month, but we really need this to happen. Well, there are times where that choice made a huge difference in the company. And there are other times where it could have been someone else. I think it's important that you have to have that clarity in your head. And you don't have to answer all 3 of those questions perfectly in order to say yes. But if you can't answer the questions in a thoughtful way, that's information to you. That's more information for you to understand yes or no. And then the question comes in, how do you say no without some sort of a long explanation? I'm that person, right? Oh, well, no, I can't. I'm really busy right now, and I have a lot of things going on, and gosh, I'm supposed to go on vacation in a week, and oh boy, and I'm the long explanation person. A graceful no can be short, but it can be warm. It doesn't require a detailed justification in order to explain every reason. And ask for their understanding. And a graceful no can be short. It can be warm, too. It doesn't require you to have full detailed justifications to explain every reason why you say no. It doesn't have to ask really for their understanding, and it doesn't have to apologize 3 times. That's me in the nutshell. It doesn't have to do those things. Something like, I appreciate you thinking about me, but it's not something I'm able to take on right now. I'm focused on some other things, and they really need my full attention. That's it. No elaborate explanation is required. It's brief, it's honest, and it's kinder in a lot of ways. Longer explanations involve negotiation. Sometimes they feel disingenuous. And again, if you need more time, go ahead and just tell the person, I need some time to think about it. I need some time to look at my schedule. And like I said, it's usually a little bit easier the next day to say no. Let me check my commitments and get back to you. And then actually check. Meaningfully look at those 3 questions. Look at your schedule and then give a real answer. But what about the yeses that you've already said yes to? And sometimes it's worth addressing most of those too, because some of us have some yeses that are already sitting on our calendars right now, and we agreed to it, and maybe we wished we hadn't. There's a concept that's called the sunk cost fallacy. See, we're talking economics today, but it's the idea that if we keep doing something because we've already invested in it, right? So maybe you bought a boat that you were going to fix up, or a house you were going to fix up, or a car you were going to fix up. And you're like, no, I've been working on this for 2 years. I can't give this up. I have to keep going on it, even though it no longer makes sense to do it. It shows up in our commitments too. We have this question for our commitments that you're already involved in. If I've already said yes to this, would I say yes to it today? And if the answer is no, it may be worth a graceful exit. Not every commitment can be unwound. And sometimes you have to weigh what it will cost in the relationship, other obligations that you have. But some things can be handed off or stepped back away from, or maybe simply ended. The sunk cost that you've already spent involved in whatever it is you're doing doesn't obligate you to spend more time doing it. Now, I want to give you one small habit shift that I think is worth looking at this particular week, is that most of us start our day asking a version of this. Okay, what do I need to do today? What makes the most sense for me to do today? But try asking a second question alongside of it. What do I say no to today? Is there something that's on the schedule that shouldn't be there? Or a request that's coming your way that you know you're going to have to answer to? Something that you've been doing out of habit that is not making the best use of your time. Every one of those deliberate no's per day adds up. There's 5 per week, right? That's 20 per month. That's real space and time for you to actually do the things that are on your 5 of your list. And you don't have to overhaul your life today, but start with one small step. Question the morning. One no this week. One more slightly honest answer where someone is asking from your time. And if every yes is a no to something else, it's not a scary thing. It's actually clarifying it for it. Because once you see what it is you're saying no to, you can stop saying yes by default. And you can start saying yes on purpose. You're not obliged to be all things to all people. You're not required to say yes to every reasonable request. You are allowed to protect your time and your energy and your attention to the things that belong to the most important work you're doing today, the most important relationships you have today, and the things that you are working on even in your personal life. Saying no to the wrong things is how you get to say a full, unencumbered, wholehearted yes to the right things. And so this week, one thing, you try to find one thing that you've been saying yes to out of habit or obligation. But this time, say no. Notice what happens. Notice what you have when it opens up. You know what's interesting about it is that I have been working on something in my own private life for a while now, and I finally stopped doing it. And suddenly today, I found myself with a few extra hours, and I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do with my time? And I started working on this house, which I've been trying to find time to do for a long time. I got my exercise done, and I started doing the thing in this house I needed to get done. It was so relieving to me to have just a few hours where I can actually work on something that's been very important to me. Anyway, this is Jill from the North Woods. You can always email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I'd love to hear how your life's going too. You can visit my website at jillfromthenorthwoods.com. It has all my podcasts on it. And I hope you're having a great week. And thanks for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next small step.